This is section 2, or page 2 of section 10.5. In this we're going to be having to factor first before we solve our problems and find out the values of x for this parabola. So over here to the right, I've listed negative 48 and negative 8 as my two parts I'm going to be working with. What multiplies to negative 48 that adds to negative 8. As you see, I've gone through my different factors and I've found that 4 and negative 12 add to negative 8 but multiply to negative 48. So as I consider looking at this problem, since the x squared term on our problem is 1x squared, we can use the shortcut factoring method. So that method is, very simply, to have x minus 12 and x plus 4 from these two numbers over here as our two factors. So I'm going to take those two factors and I'm going to split them up and set them each equal to 0. And then to solve each one, I'm going to subtract 4, or I'm going to add 12. That leaves me answers of x equals negative 4 and x equals 12. Written as a solution set, writing the smallest one first, that means x equals negative 4 and x equals 12. So, once again, we can use that shortcut method when we only have a 1x squared in the front of our problem. As we look at our second problem, once again, it has a 1x squared on it at the front, and so I'm looking for factors of negative 12 that add to positive 1. The positive 1 comes from right here, a positive 1x. So as I've listed through my factors, notice because it's a negative 12, one of my two factors has to be negative. So I came down here to 3 and negative 4, and that gave me negative 1. Well, that's opposite of what I need, and so I took the opposite of each one, and that gives me my factors. And so once again, this is eligible for the shortcut method, and so I have x minus 3 and x plus 4 as my two factors. I split this up and set each one equal to 0, and now I'm going to try to solve each one from there. I'm going to add 3 to both sides and subtract 4 from both sides, giving me my answers of x equals 3 and x equals negative 4. I write this as a solution set, and I have negative 4, 3. As we look at the problem at the bottom, we have to consider our final different possibility of a problem. And my note over here to the side says when you only have two terms and both of them have an x variable, a clue to doing this kind of a problem is to look for a GCF and then factor it out. So we ask ourselves, between x squared and 5x, what's the GCF? I hope you thought it was x. So we have x times x minus 5 equals 0. I now take each of these two factors and I split them up. First x equals 0, and then x minus 5 equals 0. I'm now going to solve each one. The first is already solved, but the second I have to add 5 to both sides. And so when I add 5 to both sides, I'm going to get x equals 5. As a result from this, my two answers are 0 and positive 5. So this hopefully gives you an idea of the different types of problems that we could have for this sort of a scenario.